So, um,
Over to you.
yeah, welcome everybody, and thank you for being here. This is our last speaking event for Enterprise Week 2020. It's been quite a challenge to do everything online, but it's been like so far a good week. So Enterprise Week, as you know, is a week organized in collaboration with the management department of Enterprise and Creativity to kind of bring like an idea of what enterprise entails, what means to develop a proper business, and what are the various challenges that students, but also like other people could encounter during their development journey. So this is again our first year we're doing it online, and that allowed us to have speakers from all over the globe. So today we have Ejaj. Ejaj is a former St. Andrews alumni, actually, and he also attended Harvard Business School later on in his career, and he's created a great social enterprise that's BYLC in Bangladesh, his native country, and I hope he's going to talk about that with us a bit more. So, Ejaj, on to you and your journey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lucia, thank you for the kind introduction. Delighted to be here and to see everyone. I can see the organizers. I cannot see the participants yet. So I'm delighted to be here. So what I thought would be useful is if I spent maybe 30 minutes talking a bit about my entrepreneurial journey, the problem I'm trying to solve, and then hear from you about your reflections and your questions. And we want to make it interactive, although virtual platforms like this sort of removes the human connection, but let's try to keep it engaging, interactive, and feel free to just jump in anytime you have a question. Does that sound good? Okay, great, wonderful. Can you all see me? You can, okay. So let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'll start off with telling you a bit about my background. I grew up in Bangladesh, and I went to college at St. Andrews. I was fascinated by student politics when I was at St. Andrews, and I did economics. I studied economics, but I spent more times running campaigns when I was at St. Andrews. And for 4 years, my singular mission at St. Andrews was to become the president of the Students' Union. And so in my third year, I got elected in the Students' Association. I was a general member in the SSC at that time. And then in my final year, I ran to be the president. I ran against 6 other people and lost that election. And that was a defining moment in my own understanding of leadership. So I was very heartbroken. I did not attend my graduation ceremony, came back to Bangladesh, and I was reflecting on the whole experience, what happened, what did I learn about leadership, what's my future. And while I was working in Bangladesh, as an economist, I realized that one of the main reasons why Bangladesh is poor is not because of money, but because of leadership. And if we can change the quality of leadership in Bangladesh, then we can make a difference. So I had a lot of these unanswered questions. One is, what do I do with my life? Because when I went to St. Andrews, I had a pretty good idea that one day, maybe run for office. That was a deliberate strategy in my life, get into public life, study economics. And then here I was as a 25-year-old with a failed experience, reflecting on my life and thinking if leadership, if I'm cut out for public life, and what are the challenges in my country, and what do I do with my life? So with all those questions, I applied to Harvard Kennedy School, not the business school. I did the master's in public policy. And while I was doing the master's in public policy for 2 years, I studied with a lot of famous leadership professors. And I took a decision that I would set up a leadership institute in Bangladesh. In 2007, I was part of the Obama campaign, and what fascinated me while working for the campaign was regardless of your background in America at that time, not present day America, um, regardless of your background, you could aspire for the top job in the country. And I was fascinated by that idea. And I asked myself, is a story like that possible in Bangladesh? It's not possible because in Bangladesh, which is a developing country, unless you come from a prominent family, you don't have the opportunity to make it to the top. So there is lack of justice. So I was passionate about establishing social justice in Bangladesh. When we tried to set up the leadership program, and the reason I'm telling you this now, I'll come back to it later on, is later on I'll talk to you about strategies in life and how you need to have certain deliberate strategies, but a lot of the things that happen in life are emergent strategies. They just happen. And many things that happened in my life happened because of accidents. So in 2008, I'm graduating from Harvard, and I've taken a decision. I'm going to set up a leadership institute in Bangladesh, but I need funding. So we applied for a funding from MIT, uh, the Davis Peace Prize, and the the price criteria was you had to address peace through your work to win that award. And I was thinking, okay, I want to set up a leadership program. How do I connect my work with peace? And then I came up with the idea that in Bangladesh, we have three different types of education. We have the British curriculum, we have the national curriculum, and we have the Islamic curriculum, the madrasas. And one of the reasons for lack of tolerance in Bangladesh is because of this divided education system. So we thought of bringing young people together, combine them, teach them leadership, engage them in service. So that was the model. So that's how we got into inclusiveness. And a driving force in my career as an economist, what I believe, because I studied development economics at St. Andrews. And in development economics, we talk about poverty, that if you make more than $2 a day, you're above the poverty line. But it's very much possible for you to make more than $5 a day and still have a miserable life. And that's not the kind of Bangladesh I envisioned. I envisioned a Bangladesh where young people who comprise more than 52% of our population would have a decent shot at life, would have prosperity, would have a job, and be able to have a good life. So that was the vision with which I set up this organization. And we have different programs. In 2008, we started off with a signature program for young people aged between 17 and 22. And then we wanted to keep our alumni engaged. So we started another program for secondary school kids between 13 and 15. Then we got into university students. We have a strong alumni network. But after running this for 5 years, um, I noticed that many of our alumni, we are running after school programs. They are coming to the job market and struggling to find jobs. And then we asked ourselves, if our agenda is to create long-term change in society, if our alumni are not having jobs, then how are we going to enable them to have impact in society? So that's when we got into placing young people in jobs. We work with the private sector, co-create curriculum, and place them in jobs. But after doing that for a couple of years, what I realized is there are not enough jobs in Bangladesh. We have between 2 to 2.5 million young people entering the job market every year, only 200,000 jobs. So clearly there is a mismatch between demand and supply. That's when we got into ventures. So now we have an accelerator program. We fund young people, we set up startups, we give them full support. So now we have a ventures as well, which provides entrepreneurial support to our alumni. This has been sort of our growth trajectory. We started with me and my co-founder. She was an undergraduate student at MIT at that time in 2008. We had 30 graduates. We got $10,000 from the Davis Peace Prize and a $2,500 fellowship from MIT. So that was our beginning in 2008. In 2020, we have 75 staff and more than 5,500 alumni who have gone through our programs. So these are our interventions. We work on 4 areas. We provide young people skills, we give them values, we give them jobs, and we give them ventures. And I think people who study at St. Andrews would appreciate it, because I believe the St. Andrews education is not just about your jobs. Careers are important. People need to earn a living, money, career, all of these things are important. But I believe the purpose of education is just not your livelihood. There is a greater meaning to life. How can you have a life of purpose? To help young people explore those things is also part of our mandate. So one part of our work is very applied, very materialistic, that yes, you need a job, you need a business, we'll teach you the technical skills. But the other part also is, what does it mean to have a good life? What does it mean to be a good citizen? What are the values you want to embody as an individual, tolerance, inclusiveness, collaboration. So that's the values part of the work that we do. And of course, now in the 21st century, everything is going online. So we have an online academy like edX or Coursera, BYLC X, that sort of is democratizing leadership education in Bangladesh. The reason I show you this photo is, for some of you who are thinking about social change, you're thinking about entrepreneurship. When you think about change, change can happen at two levels. One is you set up an organization, and through that, you have a set of programs and you influence through your organization. The other is you can have a linear organization, or even an individual can lead systemic change. So, as part of our drive to influence nationwide change in Bangladesh, we work with the government, drafted the youth policy, the first youth organization to draft the youth policy of the country, and the Prime Minister approved it in 2017. And what we were able to do is to include our ideas of 21st century leadership skills in the national curriculum, making it a mainstream agenda in the country. So that's been our effort to sort of drive that systemic change. And the other thing that we did is, uh, as you heard me in the beginning, I am sort of a failed student politician and a failed aspiring politician. So, but I care deeply about political change, because I believe politics matters, and you need to prepare the next generation for political roles in society. So on top, you have Kohar Rizvi, the Prime Minister's advisor, speaking at our event. And the photo on the right is a very special photo and a unique photo. The last election in Bangladesh, the national election, happened in 2019. In 2018, we had a van which went through all over the country, surveying young people, asking them what matters to you, what do you want to see from the next government. So we co-created a youth manifesto, and we have two major political parties in Bangladesh, the Awami League and the BNP, and they rarely interact. So we got these politicians together on a platform. We presented them the manifesto, and here, which, this is sort of a media coverage, you see these politicians holding their hands and making a pledge that no matter what, we are going to have the BYLC Youth Manifesto as part of our political manifesto. And of course, the Awami League won, and they are sort of, you know, carrying on with some of the ideas. And I say, of course, the Awami League won is because you're not aware of, you probably don't know much about South Asian politics, but sometimes politics in our part of the world can be quite tricky. I'm on record, so I'll limit my comment there and move on. Okay, so this is our work with the private sector, and again, um, the theory says university industry partnership is important, and what I'm showing you here is an application of that theory. We bring top CEOs of the country to a top media house. We organize these roundtables with employers, with students, with university professors, talking about how can we co-create the curriculum. Because often what happens, even in business education in Bangladesh, a lot of it is supply driven. I think this is the right curriculum, so let me just teach this. How about you ask the employers, what are the skills you're looking for? And then if you can teach young people those skills, then they will be a lot more likely to get employed. So that's our engagement with the private sector. We work with, the education ministry in Bangladesh to bring about a change in the curriculum. And then we organize career fairs to place our alumni, the energy minister and the industry minister on, giving out awards for young entrepreneurs. We do a lot of work with madrasa students. And I want to quickly, some of our alumni, they're doing amazing work in different sectors. They're in Navy, won the Prime Minister's Award, entrepreneurs working with Rohingyas in Cox's Bazar. So that's sort of, what we have been doing. Now, what's the theory, the foundation of the organization? What we believe is in leadership for far too long, the idea has been you need to have a title, you need to have a position to be a leader. But what we teach at BYLC is it's not about your position, it's about the work at the center. And if you look at this system, if there are 5 people here, yes, the authority can exercise leadership, but anyone, regardless of position, can also participate in that process. And if we can just, spread that idea, then imagine if young people are empowered and they take ownership for local problems, how much change we can bring about in society. So let me maybe stop there for a bit, take some questions, and then I can again come back.
Excellent, Ejaj. Thank you. Lucia, I don't know if you want to lead the questioning, but while Lucia is unmuting and coming back to us, if any of you have got a question, you are very welcome to raise your hand and then unmute yourself, or if you prefer, you are welcome to put your question in chat. You heard Ejaj say earlier that he would like to see some people. So maybe for Ejaj, if you have got a question, if you'd be willing to put your camera and your microphone on and ask a question, that would be amazing.
I guess I can start off, and I would like to start with the same question I actually asked you in our previous meeting during the later scholarship. That's what's your fondest memory of St. Andrews? I think this is important because St. Andrews is the place where your kind of entrepreneurial journey started. And so what can actually inspire you in St. Andrews to kind of embrace an entrepreneurial journey as first?
This is not going to be a very role model kind of a response, Lucia. I had no idea what I'd be doing with my life when I was at St. Andrews. I used to go out three nights at least, a week and just hang out and go from, pub to pub, just hang out with my friends. But what I realize now is what I actually did at St. Andrews is I developed my networking skills. I could hang out with people. I could strike a conversation with anyone. But I did not think about networking when I was 18 years old. I just loved hanging out with people, meeting people, talking about different things. And I had a fantastic do it all over again. I would definitely choose St. Andrews. And that's my fondest memory of St. Andrews. And I'll also tell you my biggest regret that many of you may have when you're like approaching 40. I'll be 40 next year. And I'm living in Silicon Valley in California in the middle of all these wonderful golf courses. My biggest regret is I never took advantage of golf. I was too busy doing other things. And as a St. Andrews student, you must, I think, it's a wonderful opportunity that I missed out.
Thank you. I maybe should start learning golfing as well, because what do they say? The best contracts are always signed on a golf course, isn't it? Also, I think we were wondering what would be your advice for like a young entrepreneur? How would be best to go about starting our own journey as entrepreneurs, especially in this like ever-changing and kind of like destroying world?
Sure. So the first thing is a few things for an entrepreneur, right? The first decision for you is making that commitment that I'm going to pursue entrepreneurship. So I want to talk a bit about that. What does it take to commit to becoming an entrepreneur? Is actually taking that leap of faith. And people who go to St. Andrews or any other good university sometimes have a difficulty pursuing entrepreneurship because you're so used to being successful. If you fall in love with success, you can never be an entrepreneur because in entrepreneurship, you're bound to fail. Your first minimum viable product is not going to work. Customers may not like it. Funding may not work out. You may not generate enough revenue. There are millions of problems that you will encounter as an entrepreneur. So the first step is giving yourself that permission that, okay, if I fail, it's all right, but I've tried. And then you just have to do it. Don't think about it. Entrepreneurship is about doing, right? It's not just about thinking. Yes, you need to have a plan, but you do it. And the reason I say this is I applied for the MIT 100K competition, which is like a top award in the US, and we were a finalist. And many of these people who win the MIT 100K competition actually end up working at McKinsey. They never become entrepreneurs. So the challenge with these business plan competitions is they train you well, and all these top companies hire you because you've got great analytical skills, but people are not really becoming entrepreneurs. So my encouragement for you would be, if you want to be an entrepreneur, just go out there and start it. That's number one. Number two, advice for entrepreneurs is fall in love with your customers, not your product, because your product may change. If you fall in love with your product, you come up with a solution, you're married to it, you think it's the best product in the world. Customers don't like it. They're not willing to pay for it. Then your product has to change. So don't fall in love with your product. It's something that you create. We take a lot of ownership about it and we take a lot of pride. But if customers don't like it, you're not generating value. Okay, so fall in love with customers. If you can solve people's problem, if you can solve people's pain, you have a business. So start with the customer. What is it that they need? And always have about customer. If you look at all the top companies in the world, starting from Amazon, no matter how what your assessment of Jeff Bezos is or Steve Jobs is, these guys focused on customer delight. They made sure that you have an amazing experience, and the customers rewarded them with their loyalty, with their purchases, and so one is take that leap of faith. It's okay to fail. Be committed. Your deliberate strategy should be, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to try it out. Stick with your product, but also keep on asking yourself, is my product working? If it's not working, how do I pivot? And how can I be focused on the customer? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. It was so insightful. I guess, Sabi, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Lucia. So Ejaj, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about your experience at business school and how important that was for your whole journey, because that's something that I'm contemplating as well after graduation or after working for a few years. So how helpful was that for you? How important do you think that's been in terms of what you're doing now?
So I think, first of all, I advise a lot of people for graduate school, right? Both public policy programs and business school programs. I recommend every year people, and many of our former colleagues have gone on to top business schools. So I have some sort of sense of what could be a good strategy for any young person. The first point I want to make is the world is changing. 20, 30 years ago, people used to have shorter lives, right? So you finish your undergraduate program, within a couple of years, you go to graduate school. But now people are living longer. Even if you defer your graduate school for 5 years, that's all right. But you have a wealth of experience. So get the real world exposure first. And then after 4 or 5 years, you can consider graduate school, unless you want to be in academia. If you want to do a PhD, then you can just go straight out of your undergraduate degree. That's a different path. But if you want to be a practitioner, I think there is value in getting real world experience. And even in an MBA class, people who have just come in with 2 years of work experience versus people who have come in with 5 years of work experience, they talk differently. You know, the person with the 2 year work experience just talking about the theories. The person with 5 years work experience is talking about management experience, you know, what it really takes, you know, managing people. So I think you can add a lot of value even to the classroom if you go there with a few years of work experience. So that's number one. And Sabi, I think, you know, the world is increasingly becoming a lot more competitive. So my suggestion would be work really hard, you know, ace your GMAT, GRE, whatever you have to, and try to get into the top 5 MBA programs around the world. Then it's just worth it. Otherwise, it's like a lot of money you're investing, you know, unless you, so aim for the best and then see what happens. I think you'll get, in the long run, it's going to add a lot more value. The network and the mentors and those things that you have, I think it makes a big difference. So, so my suggestion would be take your time, ace your, you know, your sort of your test scores, and have good referees, get a good work experience, and then go for it.
So how long after you graduated from St. Andrews did you end up going to master's school?
So I applied after 2 years, but this is like, I'm talking about 2005. And Sabi, I want to talk about, you know, having a deliberate and an emergent strategy in your life. And I'm being very authentic with all of you. When I went to St. Andrews, I knew it clearly that I would become a politician. This is like my goal in life, okay? That's why for 4 years, I cared more about student politics than I cared about economics. When I applied to Harvard, I cared more about politics than anything else. So I did not know a lot about leadership, but my application was, you know, this is what I want. I know I'm going there. Then I went there, and then I figured out that maybe this is not the best path for me. If I really want to have impact, why can I not be a teacher? Why can I not set up an enterprise? Why can I not, you know, serve people in other means? I think after hitting 25, I had a bit more flexibility in my direction in life and asking the more important question, what is my purpose? And why do I want to do it? Can I do it through other ways? So that's sort of um, that's how I have navigated through through my life challenges, and I think a lot about my purpose now. As I said, you know, I've got 2 kids. So my co-founder who was at MIT, we got married in 2011, and then she came to Stanford for her MBA, and she went to Harvard for her MBID. Then she got a job at Google. So I spend a lot of time in Silicon Valley now. But then I'm also recalibrating my purpose in life that I want to make a difference in the world. I'm setting up a global youth leadership organization in the US through which I want to take my work, you know, globally, do it globally, and get to spend more time with family. But this was not my strategy 10 years ago. I had no idea that I'd be spending time in the US, in California. I was a fully 120% Bangladeshi guy committed to Bangladesh. But things have evolved, right? But I'm constantly asking myself, what is my purpose? How do I maximize my impact and what makes sense for me? So, so the lesson that I'm sharing with you is you need to have some clarity on your purpose, but many things will change throughout your career. Be also open to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That was very insightful. Thank you.
Any
I
questions
thought-
from the participants?
Your question?
Yeah, thanks, Lucia and Sabi. Ejaj, you talked about, and you've just shared a little bit more about your co-founder, which was very interesting. You talked about that you started as a small sort of concern of 2 people, and now you're at 75, which is incredible, on top of the great results you've had with young people in leadership. I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about that sort of part of the journey in terms of building the team and managing people and what that's like.
That, it's been a. So your question is about managing people or building a team?
Building the team and managing people. They're kind of, for me, they're kind of interrelated.
Yes. And I think the biggest mistakes I made over the past 12 years were all people mistakes. Either I could not manage them well, they left at a time when I needed them most. So the first lesson I learned in management is it's one thing to be a good performer and one thing to be a good manager. And good performers naturally have a difficulty in becoming good managers because individual performers are always focused on individual results. But when you're managing someone, it's not about individual result. It's about how do you inspire someone to get the work done. And that was quite difficult for me in the initial days, right? So what I used to do when we started off, when we are just a team of 2 and we did not have funding, so I had a lot of interns and volunteers working with us. I used to do all the work myself because I was focused on quality, attention to detail and delegate less, which was setting a bad example. I was burning out, which was not working for the organization. So over the years, what I've learned is you have to trust people and let go. Unless you trust people, you cannot build a relationship. And I think it has to start from the entrepreneur or the manager. The first step is just trusting people and letting them run with the responsibility. Yes, sometimes they will mess up. That's something that you have to tolerate. You set your expectations. So that was one lesson that I learned. But I hope we have a few attendees here. They all set up for-profit businesses. I don't encourage you to set up a non-profit, which is what I did because it's extremely. Because if I set up another company, or if I had a startup, right? Think about a tech startup that many of you may be, pursuing a business enterprise. How do you incentivize your team? You can give them stock options, you can give them bonuses. In non-profits, you don't have any of those options. So only thing that I could sell is hope that change the country. Let's change the country. Let's do it together. You cannot pay them well. There is no bonus. There is no stock option. So it's a very difficult thing to sell. So in the early years, I faced a lot of difficulty in persuading people to come and join the team, to stay with us. The other difficulty that I had is I worked from home for 3 years. So I did not have an office. So that was another difficulty, convincing people to come to the founder's parents' apartment and work in a small guest room. That was another difficulty that we faced in the early stages. But I was very much committed to the endeavor of BYLC, and I think that helped us survive. And the last point I'll make on this is I often said to my team in the early days, and I really believe it, is I'm sure all of you have seen the film The Titanic. And when this ship sinks, there's the captain. He's still wearing his suit, okay? And he lights up a cigar. And everyone has left the ship, but he hasn't, because he takes pride in that ship. He was the captain of the ship. And he's saying to himself, I'm going to be calm. And when the ship sinks, I'm going to sink with it. But I'm not going to leave my ship because it belongs to me. So that was my sort of spirit in setting up BYLC, that, no matter what happens, I'm not quitting. And if I'm the last man there, I'll still be there. And I think that helped us to at least convince people that, this entrepreneur is committed and we can join him and be with him in this journey.
That's really interesting, Ejaj. Thank you. It's quite interesting to hear you say that, given your experience of starting a social enterprise, you wouldn't encourage people to go into it, because I took on my role as enterprise advisor in 2005. And I would say that then the majority of people that I spoke to, the students who came to me, I have an idea, I want to start something up, were actually looking for the money. They were looking to be a millionaire by the time they're 30. And in the time I've been in my job, I would say that that has changed. And many, 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 many more people are very interested in having a life of significance and in doing something that makes a difference. So I hope and I believe that we will see more people who are not sorting out first world problems, but who are doing what you're doing. Because people in the first world don't really have problems.
They have problems. I mean, that's why you have Facebook and TikTok and all of this, Snapchat.
Yeah, but those are not like real problems, if that makes sense. So I hope that more people will want to do that. And I think your organization is a fantastic example of how you can do that. That's not saying it doesn't take work, it doesn't take perseverance, it doesn't take motivation to get there. But I think you're a brilliant example of that it can be done.
Thank you, Barney. Does anybody else want to ask a question? Otherwise, I do have another question to ask to Ejaj. So I'm happy to give space to someone else otherwise. Well, I guess I'll just go with my question. And yeah, my biggest curiosity is also, what did you feel when you moved country? Because I'm not from St. Andrews, from England, for the UK, of course. And I feel like that was already a challenge, but I guess that coming from Bangladesh to Europe and then moving from the UK to the US, because they're definitely not similar country, UK, US, despite the common language, that must have been challenging. So how did it affect your experience?
I think it helped me become myself. Because when I moved from Bangladesh to the UK, and when I came back for my first holiday to Bangladesh, and my parents were really delighted that I was picking up the British accent. They're like, okay, it's good investment, good value for money. Our son is learning British English. It's fantastic. And because I was trying to blend in, and this is what you do when you're 18. Okay, so I came back to Bangladesh, and then I went to the US. And then after I came back from the US, I lost everything. And so my parents were disappointed. But what I figured is I have become myself, my unique self, which is just, there's one copy of it. And that's my authentic self. I'm not British. I'm not American. I'm not 100% Bangladeshi. I am who I am, a global citizen. And there's a bit of Scotland in me. There's a bit of America in me. There's a bit of Bangladesh in me. And this is who I am. So I'm a lot more comfortable with myself. And the global exposure, I think, helped me figure out who I really was and be just comfortable with that in that space. And I encourage that exposure to everyone. I think it broadens your outlook on life. You meet different people. So, yeah.
Oh, this is so inspiring because, yeah, me too. I always felt very self-conscious about my accent, but now, I kind of start embracing it, despite many times people don't understand what I'm actually saying. But yeah, thank you. Does anybody have one final question for Ejaj? Then let me finish on a kind of wishful thinking note, I would say. Oh, Sabi?
Wait, Ejaj, did you say that there was more left in your presentation still, or did you finish that?
I finished the main ideas, but if people are curious to learn a bit more about leadership, what we teach, I can send that by email and you can share it with the group.
That'd be very nice. I actually wanted to ask one thing. So in terms of moving forward, what do you see the organization doing in the next 5 to 10 years?
So the first thing and this is what I believe, the test of an entrepreneur is not how well your organization does when you're there. The test of an entrepreneur is what happens to your organization when you're no longer there. So right now, I'm channeling all my energies at the board level, strengthening the board governance, at the management level, strengthening the management, having succession planning across all levels, taking a step away from operations. So that's something that we are focusing on. putting together a strong team. And the question I ask myself, I look at all these, historical data. How long did the president of MIT serve when MIT first started? Or how long did the vice chancellor of Oxford serve when Oxford was first founded? And how long should the founder of BYLC stick around? And am I becoming too comfortable in my job because now things are going well, I've got steady income and all of those things. And it's very easy to fall into that comfort space that you don't challenge yourself. So I am exploring those questions, but right now the priority is succession planning, building systems in place so the organization can survive without me. And but one vision that I have is to build a world-class campus in Bangladesh so that it can. And next year, Bangladesh is turning 50, right? It's 50 years of our independence next year. And we are making this logo. And our idea of a logo is BYLC is turning 12. So we're going to have this like 12-year-old carrying the BYLC flag and a 50-year-old person carrying the Bangladesh flag. They're just running together. And the motto is, BYLC is standing next to Bangladesh in Bangladesh's development. And as long as Bangladesh is there, BYLC will also be there, which I think is somewhat similar to St. Andrews's motto. As long as Scotland stands, St. Andrews will stand. So that's our vision, to create something of enduring value that continues beyond a generation.
Thank you. Tabi, you're muted.
Oh, was I muted? Sorry. I was just saying thank you for answering. And that sounds really interesting.
But thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to spend some time with you. If I can be of service in any other way, and Sabi or Bonnie, if you have entrepreneurs who are coming through your program, they need a bit of support with anything, I'm happy to volunteer with fundraising. They're pitching to investors. Happy to serve as a resource.
Thank you. Thank you for offering.
Absolutely. Thank you for offering. I'm sure we'll be back in touch.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for everything, Ejaj. Well, let's ask one last question. Do you have any ideas about the presidential elections? I guess by living in the US now, everything is kind of focused on Biden versus Trump. So what's your kind of provision for the election?
I think my position matters very little, unfortunately. What is important is I think the national polls by Fox News and CNN are showing that Biden is leading by at least 10 points, which is a good thing. Yesterday, we had the vice presidential debate, and I think both Kamala Harris and Vice President Pence made a good show. Pence is a decent guy, but I think Trump has taught the world a lot about leadership, what leadership is and what leadership is not. It's one thing to wield a lot of power, and it's another thing to sort of, is to exercise leadership. And I think it has also taught a generation of Americans, not just in America, around the world, if you don't step up, bad people will. And then all you can do then is complain. So that's why good people need to get into politics in all countries around the world. You can't just live it and say, politics is not my cup of tea. This is what happens when the good people don't step up. You have people like Trump running countries, which is very, very unfortunate.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I also followed the debate and like he didn't provide as much insight as I hoped. So let's see what happens in the next month. Less than a month now. Oh my god, that's exciting. I think maybe on this note we can say goodbye to each other. That was a wonderful afternoon. Again, just a reminder, this was our last speaker event for this year. And I guess that despite the pandemic, we still managed to make something incredible because we actually had speakers tuning in from all over the world. Like Ejaj now is in near Palo Alto, I guess, in Silicon Valley, which is quite exciting if you think that. And again, Ejaj, thank you for waking up so early and be with us at UK 4:30 p.m. time. like even with just 1 hour time difference, I get crazy. When I go back home in Italy, I just get very confused. So I guess this was a great challenge. And thank you so much. One last thank you, I think, to the organizers of the Enterprise Week, Sabi and Emily. They've done an excellent job as co-directors. And tomorrow we have our last pitch event. That's like a very interesting event where young entrepreneurs and student entrepreneurs can pitch in their idea. There's a total amount of £1,000 to get, and each of them can get a maximum £350. This is going to be like a very interesting afternoon, and it's very inspiring to see young minds to kind of try challenging themselves and starting their entrepreneurial journey from St. Andrews while also pursuing their studies. So I guess thank you everybody. Does Sabi or Bonnie, do you want to add anything? Or also special thanks to Bonnie, that's basically our kind of fairy godmother. I think she's the pillar of enterprise and creativity in St. Andrews, and like it shows. Yes, Sabi.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think you've covered all the thank yous. I would just like to thank the audience as well for coming, for being interactive, for tuning in to all of our events this week. It wouldn't have been a success without all of them. So thank you so much. I think on that note.
Thank you everyone.
Right.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
ever so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.